are going to see a little bit of the piece where the dancers have to balance things on their heads, which was my evil idea. I take full responsibility, but it's actually a lot of fun to do. And there's a suite of dances based on Shel Silverstein poems. That was our inspiration for those pieces. And there's a set where an amazing cover band, Led Zeppelin, let us use their music. So we have a whole suite.
A cover band?
It's an amazing cover band. Swan Montgomery is a phenomenal musician.
And who do they cover?
They cover Led Zeppelin.
Really?
They are Led Zepp again. And
oh, I see. Led Zepp again. I get it. It took me a second to sink in, but that's great. And also, your music is to your dance is to Led Zeppelin music in this presentation.
That's one of the suites. We have 2 pieces by Led Zepp again. We have an amazing. The opening piece is by Oza Motley, which a lot of people have heard of.
Of course, I love them. They're great.
They're amazing.
Kumbaya, right? Kumbia music. Kumbia music.
A mix of everything. They fuse it all, and the piece that we're using is off of their Street Signs album. Will Dog Abers has been incredibly generous to let us use their music.
Oh, cool! Yeah. Wow. So really, that's really music with a lot of movement and a lot of action. I'm familiar with them. All right, great, and very political actually. They're sort of radical. All right, cool. We're all for that here. I just came back from Occupy Wall Street, by the way, just a few minutes ago. I was down in Zuccotti Park.
Fantastic.
It was great. I had a great time. As you saw my old friends. I haven't seen them in so long, 2 years, since last year actually. We only see each other once a year, but maybe with a new mayor, with Mayor de Blasio, we'll see it in his heart to let us reestablish our protest site there, because there's definitely good reason for it, as we all know.
We'll sweep.
Tell us, great. So where is this going to be? Where's the location?
Manhattan Movement and Arts Center. It's right on West 60th Street. It's incredibly beautiful space. The whole center was just built a few years ago, so it's such a treat for dancers and for audiences to be in this. It's not just pristine, but it's really well designed, because even though there's almost 200 seats, it's a very intimate feeling venue. And you can do aerial work. Not a lot of places are willing in their liability policy to let you risk your neck.
Wow, you're right. I never thought of that. But of course, now you mention it, knowing New York, my God.
It's really hard.
You can't walk down the street without slipping on a banana peel. I'm glad you have a sense of humor. You laugh at my jokes. I can't believe you laugh at my jokes. All right, great, cool. So tell me. So that, I think it's really neat what you're doing. All right, so okay, so about General Mischief here. General Mischief Dance Theater was founded informally in 2004 as an artistic collaboration between performer choreographer Emily Smith Fortanian, who's here, your rigger lighting designer Mark Barker, and sound designer choreographic advisor Adam Fortanian, your significant other.
Actually my brother.
Your brother. I was thinking in the back of my head. He's going to say her brother.
No, it's totally fine. He's married to an amazing woman. I got to marry them. It was really fun.
Oh, neat. Will you do marriages?
I do. As of 2 months ago.
How do you do that?
Universal Life Church, and register at City Hall. It's fantastic.
I love that. That's great. Get a tax deduction too, I hope.
Well, hey, I'm not going to charge for it. Now that everyone can get married, I'm willing to marry anyone.
All right, neato. See, this is a choreographer and someone who does his marriages. This is really neat.
Multi-talented.
All right, you are. The company was formally incorporated in 2008 in the interest of actively producing theatrical dance pieces that reinforce the power that joy and laughter have in communicating ideas. How did you come up with this idea?
It's actually much like what you said. I have seen a lot of the pieces where people are sawing down trees and painting strange colors and getting naked and rolling on the floor, which is not to say that that is not necessarily brilliant, but it can be a lot of work to watch. And I would see my friends' shows or a choreographer's work that I admired, and I would leave drained. And for me, I've always wanted to dance. This was just what happened. I came out of the womb, I jumped up and ran around. My parents said, well, maybe dance class would be a good idea, and off I went.
Where were you born and raised? Where were you born and raised?
Oakland, California.
Okay, and how long have you been in New York?
Been in New York, oh my goodness, about 7.5 years now.
Is this the dance center more than the Bay Area? This is where to go for dance.
You know what's interesting? The Bay Area is fantastic. It was an amazing place to grow up and dance. I then went to UCLA for college, which is a fantastic university. It's got a very cultural studies focused dance program, and we had a chance to learn and grow in terms of choreography and performance, but the LA dance scene is very based in the movies and MTV, you know, that kind of thing. So New York was where I thought the dancers that wanted to tell the same stories that I did and wanted to have a sense of humor about it would probably be, there's amazing dancers in LA, but this feels right to me.
A little different. Okay, great. Well, let's see an example.
Sure.
Okay, we have something queued up, and the engineer will play it now, and turn the volume up so we can hear it in here if possible. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm curious.
Great. Thank you, guys. And we're going to listen. Well, we'll talk in the meantime while he's getting it going. Yeah, it'll get to it eventually.
No,
okay,
it'll magically pop up at some point.
Right. And so tell me a little bit about, okay, so that's this, so again, it's this Saturday and Sunday at Manhattan Movement and Arts Center, 248 West 60th Street. And then you're doing another show in October?
We are.
What are you doing in October?
That one's called Four on the Floor, because this one has aerial work. It's at Manhattan Movement.
Sure.
Four on the Floor is at City Center Studios, and that's going to be all work based on the ground. But that includes our Ozomatli suite. That includes the Shel Silverstein piece. There's one piece that's only going to be in 3 by air, so if you want to catch that one, it involves the audience determining who plays what part.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes.
I like that idea. Audience participation. We're going to go now to the tape, okay? And I believe they're queuing it up right now. Cool. All right.
A little bit of everything.
Led Zepp again, right?
Led Zepp again.
Good. And so that's a little bit. What was that program? Which suite was that?
That's actually pieces from a lot of different shows. Though in any given show there can be all of those happening at the same time. There's one piece that you're only going to see in Four on the Floor, the piece with the hats. It's basically a human 3-card Monty.
Oh, really?
We show, one of the hats has a red lining. We start with 3 dancers, and then of course you have to make it interesting, so we add more as it goes on.
Sure.
We put the hats on our heads, and then we proceed to trade them around during the piece, and the audience is trying to follow. Cool. It's a really fun piece. Most of that was from Rascals Cavorting, which we did last fall.
Did people bet?
You know, people shout is what they do.
Right.
They're like, 6, number 2.
I hope you don't get raided by the Vice Squad. Gambling in the theater.
The only thing, the one person wins a T-shirt. So.
Okay, great. That's the only thing.
Yep.
Like kind.
I like mischief, so they get to declare their.
Great. Very mischievous.
Enthusiasm. Yes.
All right, cool. So again, let's go back because we sort of went to the program. Tell us about the October show again.
Yes, the October show involves that piece, which is called the Shell Game. Sweet Shell is starting in the show this weekend as 3 dances, and it's amazing because for one of the first times ever we have a composer. Her name is Lizzie Hagstedt, who has made music for us, which I couldn't ask for anything more. I really couldn't. She's made pieces based on the movement that we've created. They're playful in spirit. They completely line up with the Shel Silverstein seeds that we're coming from.
Sure.
And what we're doing is taking 3 dances in September, expanding that to 6 in October. So the audience that sees both shows is going to see the progression of the story and of what the poems are kind of working into.
And a reason to come see it again.
A reason to come see it again, yeah.
Right. So, great. And so, I mean, do you work on this full time? Can you make a life where you can do this?
I work on it full time, not necessarily paid full time yet, but I still get to be in the company, so I'm paid as a dancer. There is the administrative end that has a certain stipend to it, but I'm lucky because I really love my other job, which is teaching yoga. So it also keeps me from being busted. I should definitely be broken by now, and I'm not.
Oh, from doing all the dancing,
all the dancing and the aerial work.
Yeah, tell us about the injuries. I mean, I'm becoming an expert now. I sprained my ankle a couple weeks ago.
Oh. It's really actually great to walk into my students and almost be limping and say, "Hey guys, I'll be great after I take class."
Right.
You can really end up with some high-speed collisions. Some of stuff that you saw in the video, those bungees, if one person ends up not landing on the floor exactly as they intended, once you take off from the 4 square feet that you have access to control your momentum, you can only do damage control.
Okay.
So sometimes you'll whack each other, but that's mostly in the learning process, and you tend to make things bigger and fancier as you know exactly how to coordinate what you're doing.
All right, great. So tell me more about your influences and how you got to do this kind of work.
That's a really good question. Actually, Mark Baker is to blame very much for my aerial involvement, because when I was at UCLA, I went back to Northern California. I taught in Oakland at my old high school. I taught the morning dance seminar for their spring break. And my dance teacher said, hey, do you want to crash the afternoon course? I said, sure, what is it? She said, aerial dance. I said, what is that? And I asked the same question everybody said, oh, is that circus stuff? Oh, I'll go give it a try. These amazing women, Terry Sandgraf and Cherie Carson at the Motivity Center in Berkeley, taught 5 different apparatus in 5 different days. I fell in love with harness because I felt like I could really dance. I felt that I wasn't trying to pull off a high wire act. I was dancing in the air. And this was fantastic, but I didn't have a harness. I didn't have a place to do it. So Mark was someone I worked with, known each other for years, one of my best friends, and he gave me one of their 2 small tech harnesses for the places that he was working at and doing, basically to hang the lights up in a theater, you have to have a safety rig. So it wasn't even an appropriate aerial harness, it was a tech harness, but I wanted to do it so badly that I just stuck some neoprene in there and hung off an I-beam in a dance studio and made my first aerial piece.
Okay, wow, that's how you did it.
Yeah.
Right, and then did you come to New York with the intention of doing this kind of work to develop this?
That's a brilliant question. In the back of my brain, yes. I came here to perform and to be a dancer while your tendons are still young. That seems like a good move. And I've done that, and I went out on tour and had wonderful adventures, but it was really interesting that the more people you work with, the more you learn about what you believe, how dancers should be treated, what their circumstances should be. And the one thing that I'm very proud of is everybody that works with the company says, this is great, like this working circumstance is awesome. These people are wonderful, because anybody who ends up being a diva doesn't do the next show. We don't usually have that problem, but when you're doing
the effort involved.
There's effort involved, and if you want to make playful pieces, you can't have somebody who's throwing a hissy fit. So there's incredibly skilled dancers. Yeah, you can't.
So how do you do that how do you create a knit group of people that like each other and like working together with each other? Because why is it more like JFK than Nixon?
That's a good one.
Well, it's the 50th anniversary of all these things that happened in his life, so I've been thinking about him lately.
No, rightly so. But that's how creating an environment of love is actually really easy to do when you're in a business where you can't necessarily make all the money that you want to. Of course, the dancers are paid, but no dancer, as far as I'm concerned, is ever paid enough for what their body is going through, for all of that. That's a whole different arts and politics discussion. The people that we work with consistently, and since 2008 when we formally really got this going, there's been folks who have regularly appeared because they have the right attitude. It's not just that they're incredibly talented dancers, which they are, but they're smart, they have a sense of humor. You learn who you want to continue to invite back based on what happens in the studio. When people have amazing creative ideas, the work shows that, and they're willing to play. If someone comes in and is waiting to be told exactly what to do, but doesn't necessarily have any spirit, even if it's not that, it's my job to come up with the choreography, but more often than not, I will change my choreography completely because the dancer will mess up and have a sense of humor about it, and it's better than what I thought of. So you keep it in.
Okay, great. So you're open to those kind of creative things that people come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. Tripping and falling on your face is one of the best things ever, and they usually do it in some kind of stylish fashion because they're very physically aware. And we'll put it somewhere else in the dance, even if it can't go exactly in that part.
So equally, male and female dancers will get involved in this, this strenuous form of dancing?
Yes, actually. Well, and we have some really strong girls. Elisa Fenley, Dare Harlow, Jane Abbott, and Lisa Natoli are the main suspects. There's also wonderful guests that I'd love to speak about. they're the ladies on this crew. Gautam Nima is equally strong, but people expect the men to do this and to lift and like that. Jane and Elisa are the same size, and I've got them lifting one another. At one point, Elisa lifts me when we're flying through the air.
While you have your harness on.
Sometimes she's deadlifting me. I am on her shoulder, over her head.
That's amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. She's solid as a rock, and that's one thing that I think female dancers don't always get a chance to do. In modern and contemporary work more often. In ballet, you rarely see it done. But they have this amazing technique, and they're so strong. And being playful actually lends to having stronger dancers, because if you're game, you're going to dive, you're going to roll on the floor, you're going to do things that are physically harder, so you push yourself to that next level. So
let's go over again where the show is going to be. Again, I'll just remind folks, we're talking to Emily Vartanian, and she is the choreographer of the General Mischief Dance Theater Company, which is doing a performance series here in New York, starting this Saturday and Sunday, right? And tell us, that's going to be at the Manhattan Movement and Arts Center, 248 West 60th Street. And when's the October show?
The October show is the 18th and the 19th. So this weekend is a Saturday and Sunday. That one's a Friday and a Saturday.
And when's your website, too? That's the
GeneralMischief.com.
GeneralMischief.com. Look, and there's how you spell mischief. She's wearing the T-shirt right there.
Miss Chief, which only took me 4 years to
She makes Mischief. And so you go to GeneralMischief.com, and you can learn more about the tickets and all that stuff, the admission and all that stuff. You're right. All the important stuff. And so do you have, at your website, do you have like a mailing list people can sign up for and find out about things?
They certainly can, and they can always email trouble@generalmischief.com if they have questions, if they want to be on the mailing list and that link didn't work for whatever reason. There's an outtakes reel on there that I highly recommend if you're having a bad day. You get to see people biffing. You get to see me attempting to start the music while attached to a bungee cord on a CD player that I cannot reach. It so usually makes people feel better.
It's comedic, right?
It's comedic.
But painful.
It was originally a gift to my fellow aerialist, and she said, you should post that.
So there's people can see, like, from this strenuous form of dance, that people can see the outtakes, which are all full of a lot of energy, a lot of kinetic energy, right? All right, great. So okay, good. And I guess we have a few minutes. Like, tell us where you go from here. Do you have any other plan? What are your plans for the future? Because I mean, you must be thinking of those right now, right?
We are.
Even now, you always be thinking of the next thing.
We are always thinking of the next thing. We have the theater booked for next spring. We've got a 2-week run on the Lower East Side at the Connolly Theater planned, and that's a further expansion of the Shell Suite. East 4th Street.
East 4th Street. Okay, it's on that East 4th stretch there of theaters.
Yeah, it's between A and B. It's a lovely space. It's one of those like old vaudeville houses. It's got a wraparound balcony, and the dancers love it. The audience loves it. It's so fun to be there.
Okay, great. So that'll be next spring.
That's next spring.
Are you going to be doing developments of what you're doing now, or new things?
Yes, further development of Sweet Shell, and hopefully poems by Billy Connolly as well. But continuing to work with Lizzie on her fantastic original compositions. It's one of those things where you start the music and your body can't wait to move.
Right.
Something that we do, and especially at the Connolly, is after certain performances we'll bring in like a jazz trio or something like that. So when people want to dance after the show, because ideally they have energy.
Oh, you get the audience in and dancing too with the music. Okay, right. You have live. You have a live band that's going to be. It's not recorded, or is it live?
Some of it's pre-recorded, because that's the amazing thing. When your composer plays 6 instruments, that most people don't, including the kazoo, it's very difficult to get qualified people to do that live.
Including the kazoo, right? Right. It's to get the right people to do it. It's better to have certain instruments on tape beforehand.
It's actually a really interesting challenge to do dance with live music. If you don't have the budget for an orchestra, the question is, because there's a slight irregularity when you do things live, and I love performing to live music.
It's always a little different when they do live.
It always is a little different.
It's never exactly the same, and it's hard when your choreography. Well, your type of choreography allows for a little bit of.
Yes, but you have to add even a little bit, like 10% more playroom.
Right, than usual. Okay, so because the musicians never do it exactly the same twice.
Which is why it's great.
That's why they're musicians.
That's why they're musicians, and that keeps it alive. It's very cool.
Especially as jazz. So I'm looking here at your press release, and you have some of the programs: Too Easy, Buzz, and Three If by Air. Tell us a little bit about those.
Sure. Buzz is the piece with the cups on the heads.
Right.
And there was a little clip of that. Yeah. So we've got,
three sleepy city dwellers and explodes into a bustling street scene. Strangers collide, connect, and caffeinate in the high-speed and ever-changing world of the big city. That's New York, not Oakland.
Yeah, that is New York. That's the influence of where I am now, definitely. Yeah. The Ozomatli tune starts off with something that sounds like it's really hard to get out of bed, so that's what we made.
Sure.
And you've got the buzz is a play on both the alarm clock that goes off to start the piece and the coffee.
Right.
So the coffee cups move around, the dancers interact, and it's basically...
Oh, that's the buzz, is the caffeinated.
That's the buzz, is the caffeine. Well, it
took a second to sink in, but now I get it.
It's a double, double meaning thing.
Sure, the buzz of the city and the buzz of the caffeine.
Buzz of the city, buzz of the caffeine,
right.
And the real buzz of the city that has been fascinating to me is the longer you live here, the more people you run into every day. So it starts off with a bunch of strangers. They're all kind of passing. They haven't really interacted with each other. And by the end, the audience has met all of these characters. Some of them have run into each other 3 times.
Community building in New York City.
Community building. And it, of course, ends on the subway.
Sure, of course. Or you see them coming out of the subway. So, okay, Three If by Air. Which one is that? See, a suite of aerial dances that involves bungee cords, a flip of a coin, chants, and audience participation.
So that's the one where the audience is going to decide who goes up and who goes down.
Right.
So Elisa and I know both parts.
Sure.
We get an audience member out, they flip the coin for us, and they determine who does the part on the bungees and who does the parts on the floor.
That's amazing. And then Too Easy. All right, our trio of yogis play a game where one of them tries a posture and the other 2 follow with a varying amounts of intentional success or failure.
Well, and this is...
Intentional, you have intentional in parentheses there.
Right. This one is actually modified because you saw a little bit of the people bending all the way in half. We like to have audience interaction in the shows, so we've increased the opportunity for interaction. There's the coin flip opportunity, and there's actually opportunity for an audience member to get in on that action.
Okay.
Which we don't want anyone to hurt themselves, but there's nothing like seeing someone do something and try to do it. So the problem is we're trying to basically cast someone with a general mischief attitude in the middle of the performance
and to find them
dive in, to find them and to come and step on stage and be willing to play.
And so you have some other, let's go through 4 on the floor. Let's see, and this is an extension of the original Sweet Shell work, all right? That's the one where the shell game is going on, right?
That's believe it or not, that's the Shel Silverstein suite. The shell game is it's really confusing. I need to actually specify.
It's another Shel. Shel Silverstein, tell me about Shel Silverstein, the poet, right?
The amazing thing is sometimes ideas pick you. You don't pick them. My mother gave me Everything on It, which was his last collection of poetry, and it's incredibly self-aware. Some of them are his normal charming, the dance of the shoes. The shoes are going off to do this. And then there's a couple of 5 or 6 line poems that you realize he wrote while he knew he was dying. They're incredibly self-aware and incredibly sweet. It's amazing to have someone who has this attitude about death. They're practically standing on the other side of it and is warm-hearted in the process.
Right.
So we've taken some of these things and we basically played with objects to make the dance that I'm making, because the cool thing about Sweet Shell is every poem is given to a different choreographer.
Okay,
so I made one piece, Celine Rosenthal made another, Lisa Natoli made one that's like a spider climbing in her
and then one
web.
suite is all these separate
people
people
in it. One suite is all these separate choreographer ideas.
Very interesting. Yeah. And then of course we talked about the shell game, Buzz 2.0.
So that starts with the buzz that's in this show, and we're going to add a whole nother dance to another Ozomatli song. So that's building up to an Ozomatli suite that'll be completed in the spring as well.
Okay, great, cool. All right, and so neat. How long does it take to prepare for something like this? I mean, 6 months or something? More?
To a certain extent, more, because we're developing things over time. And some of that development happens in your head, and some of that happens in the studio. I would love to say we have a year to work with the dancers to put up a show, and you can't ask them for that time in terms of the intensity that you usually rehearse with. But the cool thing is when everybody's having fun, everybody's willing to do it.
Cool.
So that's why we're kind of developing. We've got this first performance happening with all this brand new stuff, and then progressing that, and then all the way into 8 months from now, kind of the culminating, everything landing where it's going to be. But I'll work on a song in my head for anywhere from a month to 5 years. before I actually start making it in this space.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily Smith Vartanian, for coming here and telling us about General Mischief Theater and Dance Theater. And folks are encouraged to check it out this Saturday and Sunday at the Manhattan Movement and Arts Center, 248 West 60th Street. And you can get more information by going to generalmischief.com. So we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you so much.